Although AWS kind of does a shitty job of like, I'm continually surprised. Like Mechanical Turk, for example, how shitty the interface is. We're talking about like Rev making me feel good. Like when I first discovered Mechanical Turk, the initial idea of it was like it made me feel like Rev does, but then the interface is like, come on,
Yeah, it's
it's
horrible.
why is this
Yeah.
so painful? Does nobody at Amazon want to like seriously invest in it? It felt like you could make so much money if you took this effort seriously, and it feels like they have a committee of like two people just sitting back, like a meeting. They meet once a month. Like, what are we gonna do with Mechanical Turk? If it's like two websites make me feel like this, that and Craigslist.org, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
feels like it's designed in the 90s.
Well,
Oh,
Craigslist basically hasn't been updated pretty much since the guy
do you
originally
seriously
built.
think there's a team? Like, how big is the team working on Mechanical Turk?
I don't know. There's some team, right?
I feel like there isn't. I'm skeptical.
Yeah. Well, if
It's
nothing else,
possible.
they benefit from, the other teams like moving things forward,
Okay,
right? In a small
possibly.
way.
Possibly.
But no, I know what you mean. We use Mechanical Turk for a couple of things
Yeah.
as well, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
painful
It's
UI.
painful. But yeah, it works.
I
Actually,
think most people, the thing is, most people don't really use the UI, right? Like, so, like
right.
we, for example, we
That's right.
use it through the API, right? So,
Yeah. But even the API documentation and so on, like it's super outdated. Like
yeah,
it's it, I don't even know what to. I mean, the same same criticism. As long as we're ranting, my same criticism goes to the APIs of most of these companies, like Google, for example. The API for the different services is just the documentation is so shitty. Like it's not so shitty. I should actually be. I should exhibit some gratitude. Okay, let's practice some gratitude.
gratitude.
The documentation is pretty good. Like most of the things that the API makes available is pretty good. It's just that in the sense that it's accurate, sometimes outdated, but like the degree of explanations with examples is only covering, I would say, like 50% of what's
Hmm.
possible.
Hmm.
And it just feels a little bit like there's a lot of natural questions that people would want to ask that doesn't get covered. And it feels like it's almost there. Like it's such a magical thing.
Yeah,
Like the Maps API, YouTube API. There's a
yeah.
bunch
I
of
gotta
stuff.
imagine it's like, there's probably some team at Google, right, responsible for writing this documentation. It's probably not the engineers, right? And probably
Exactly.
this team is not, where you want to be.
Well, it's a weird thing. I sometimes think about this. For somebody who wants to also build a company, I think about this a lot. YouTube, the service is one of the most magical. Like I'm so grateful that YouTube exists, and yet they seem to be quite clueless on so many things. Like that, everybody is screaming them at. Like it feels like whatever the mechanism that you use to listen to your quote unquote customers, which is like the creators, is not very good.
Hmm.
Like there's literally people that are like screaming why, like their new YouTube studio, for example. There's like features that were like begged for a really long time, like being able to upload multiple videos at the same time. That was missing for a really really long time. Now, like there's probably things that I don't know, which is maybe for that kind of huge infrastructure, it's actually very difficult to build some of these features. But the fact that that wasn't communicated and it felt like you're not being heard. Like I remember this experience for me, and it's not a pleasant
Yeah,
experience,
yeah,
and it feels like the company doesn't give a damn about you, and that's something to think about. I'm not sure what that is. That might
yeah.
have to do with just like small groups working on these small features, on these specific features, and there's no overarching like dictator type of human that says like, why the hell are we neglecting like Steve Jobs type of character. There's people that we need to we need to speak to the people that like want to love our product and they don't. Let's
Yeah,
fix this
maybe at some
shit.
point you just get so fixated on the numbers, right? And it's like, well, the numbers are pretty great, right?
That's
Like
right.
people are watching, doesn't seem to be a problem, right?
It
And
doesn't seem
you
to be
don't,
a problem.
and you're not like the person that like built this thing, right? So you really care about it.
Yeah.
You know, you're just there. You came in as a product manager, right? You got hired sometime later. Your mandate is like increase this number, like 10%, right? And you just
That's brilliantly put. Like if there's a lesson in this, is don't reduce your company into a metric of like how much, like you said, how much people watching the videos and so on, and like convince yourself that everything is working just because the numbers are going up.
yeah.
There's something you have to have a vision. You have to want people to love your stuff, because love is ultimately the beginning of like a successful long-term company. Is they always should love your product.
You have to be like a creator and have that like creator's love for your own thing, right? Like, and you're pained by these comments, right? And probably like Apple, I think, did this generally like really well. They're well known for kind of keeping teams small even when they were big, right? And he as an engineer, like there's that book, Creative Selection. I don't know if you read it, by a Apple engineer named Ken Kosienda. It's kind of a great book actually, because unlike most of these business books where it's here's how Steve Jobs ran the company, it's more like, here's how life was like for me, an engineer. Here are the projects I worked on, and here's what it was like to pitch Steve Jobs, on like, I think he was in charge of like the keyboard and the autocorrection, right? And at Apple, like Steve Jobs reviewed everything, and so he was like, "This is what it was like to show my demos to Steve Jobs, and to change them because like Steve Jobs didn't like how the shape of the little key was off because the rounding of the corner was like not quite right or something like this." Right? He was famously a stickler for this kind of stuff. But because the teams were small, you really owned this stuff, right? So you really cared.
Yeah, Elon Musk does that similar kind of thing with Tesla, which is really interesting. There's another lesson in leadership in that, is to be obsessed with the details, and like he talks to like the lowest level engineers